Hello, guys. Welcome to the channel once more. Today, I am going out on an early morning ride. As you can see, the sun is just beginning to show itself right at the horizon. So, this morning was a little bit chilly. I put on some warm clothing, but as soon as I got the bike to speed, then it really got cold. Fired up the bike, and then I chose to go on the back roads on this particular day because with the Himalayan you really don't want to be driving or riding highway speeds. It's much more enjoyable when you take the scenic route and just ride a little bit slower than a street bike would want to be riding. And I was surprised by the amount of insects that were up this early in the morning. I got to hit quite a few bugs. Again, the bike is so enjoyable, smooth power delivery. The shifts are really gorgeous, no hesitation. The bike works just like clockwork. And I know initially some people get disturbed by the ticking sound coming from the top of the engine, with the valve train. But with time, you kind of get grown to the noise that the comes from the top of the engine, those valves, and then you get used to it. In fact, I think the absence of that sound would be more worrying to me than its presence. So this was about the town I'm going to is about 50 miles to the east. So the round trip is about 100 miles. And I also drove quite a bit around town when I got to town. At the end of this day, I believe I ended up with more than 300 miles. Few bumps here and there. Very quiet morning, nobody out on the road. The bike is performing great. At times you might even forget this is a single cylinder engine. You might think it's something else because it's so smooth. It doesn't come with the sporadic power that you expect from a thumper. One thing I learned about the Himalayan, well, it derives its name from, of course, the Himalaya mountains, which you find to the north of India. And it's actually two words. The Himalaya is two words. It's in Sanskrit, Hima, meaning snow, and Alaya, meaning where something dwells or lives. So it's the place where the snow lives or stays or dwells. So Himalaya. It's quite interesting. And that's Sanskrit. Sanskrit is one of the languages they use in India, mainly for it's been relegated. But it stays very relevant, especially for religious purposes. I might be getting this wrong, but that's the kind of information passing around I could find, and I found the meaning of the word Himalaya to be quite interesting. So during this outbound ride, it's basically the same kind of terrain all the way through. You have those sloughs to the right and left, and then some farmsteads. But otherwise, it's just a nice long ride all the way to town with very little traffic. this is where you start appreciating the suspension setup on the Himalaya. It just absorbs all those little bumps. The camera might look a little bit shaky, but if you're seated on the bike, it's almost like it's just gliding over those bumps. And finally, I got to the blacktop. It's still the same rural road, and but this area is paved, so there's very little traffic to be expected. And finally, I made it to town. You can see that's the morning traffic, everybody trying to get to work. And the sun has also cleared the horizon. It's a bit higher up in the sky. So this is a pretty steep hill. I'm going uphill right now, and as you can see, the Himalayan has no problem with that. I think I had my camera turned all the way towards the tank. Next time I will try to adjust it so you guys can see a little bit more of the surrounding landscape. At this point I was quite cold actually, and that little windshield, it actually does a good job of keeping the wind off of your chest, but quite a bit of the wind goes around, and yeah, it will get you cold. And also I might be looking for some handlebar guards. Those ones deflect the wind around, and that way your knuckles don't get frozen. The Himalayan corners very well, but just a word of caution, be very careful. Your feet, your boots will hit the ground first before you even realize it. So just be cautious about that when you go to take those curvy roads. Otherwise, the Pirelli MT60 tires, they are very grippy, and they have so far performed very well on my bike. The 21 inches of tire up front and the 17 in the rear make it very easy to absorb very big bumps. I haven't really hit the pothole yet, but the bike is very stable, and it just swallows up those road obstacles without complaining. If you are from India, I still have doubts in my mind. Is Sanskrit a language that is commonly spoken, or is it used mostly for religious purposes? I've never been to India, and I'm just curious if somebody can comment below, and that will help to educate myself and others who might be wondering if Sanskrit is still used a lot on a daily basis. So this is town. This is an older part of town. On the left you have the shopping mall. This is an older GoPro, you can tell, so the dynamic range is not so good. On the right you see things are washed out, so sorry about that. On the right you have a little strip mall where you can get do some shopping. Have restaurants. And interestingly, on this day, I had two guys actually walk up to me. They were all curious about what kind of bike this was. There were guys who had, one of them had, I think, a BMW, and the other one had, it was a smaller bike, I think a Honda. But it wasn't like a 700cc or anything like that. It was more like a dirt bike. So directly behind me, there's the new hospital that is still under construction. I don't think I got it on video, but it's directly opposite to the direction in which I'm riding right now. And I'm facing east, so the sun is coming directly at the camera and the bike. That's why you have a lot of flaring in the image. So here I'm turning into the parking lot of Walmart. Still quite early, so you don't have many shoppers around. You can see the parking lot is still kind of empty. And this is the main street of town. Like I said, the Himalayan corners very well. On the right you have a bunch of dealerships, but this is the main street. It's called Broadway. It runs north to south. So this is my second bike. The first one, I had a Honda 900, a CBR 900 RR. It was an older one from like 94. So coming from a street bike to a dual sport, there's still a lot I have to learn. I didn't ride that bike too much on the highway. But certain reflexes, like using the indicator light, it's something I'm still working on. You can see right here, I forgot I left it on. So with time and experience, I think I will get better. When you hit 300 miles initially, you will have a service reminder indicator on the dash that will start flashing. So I have mine flashing right now. I have more than 300 miles, and I just placed an order for an oil filter kit, and I will be doing the oil change myself and the initial valve verification and adjustment myself. From what I have seen, it's kind of initially it will be a tedious job, but once you've done it once or twice, then it becomes something routine which you can accomplish in about an hour or two. But for the initial valve check and adjustment, I think that will be a bit tedious. So here I'm just checking out the new trucks they have on sale. Many new vehicles. On the left you have a Jeep Gladiator. And this is also the Toyota dealership. So the 2021 Toyota RAV4 Prime is one of the vehicles that are highly sought, and usually this dealership will get those vehicles, even though most of what they sell here are pickup trucks. You have another Gladiator to the left. Then you have a Dodge Durango. And as you can see, the Himalayan is very stable at slow speeds. Very good manners. It doesn't act like it's gonna dump you even when going this slow. Those are some really nice trucks, and quite expensive too. These are the used vehicles on the right. As you can see, the big full-sized SUVs and pickup trucks are very popular out here. We don't get much warm or nice weather, so people always try to carry supplies in case they get stuck somewhere and they want four-wheel drive, which is usually common with the full-size SUVs and pickup trucks. The Himalayan does really good with handling at low speed, so you have very good control. Tight spaces or where you need to maneuver just to keep going, so it accomplishes that very well. And then when you come to a stop, even though the bike looks like it's very tall, the seat height itself is not that tall, so your foot will be able to reach the ground. And yeah, so you can actually use this as a commuter bike to drive on a daily basis. It's not too heavy. If you happen to drop it, one person can easily pick it up, so long as the bike is not overloaded with stuff. And here is the Honda dealership. The microphone I am using is the inbuilt mic on the camera I have strapped to my chest, so you might not be able to hear the exhaust notes. So hopefully I should be able to correct that in the coming weeks. As you can tell, I'm not just looking at the vehicles, I am just enjoying the ride on the Himalayan. It's just such a blast to go around town slowly, taking your time and not racing the bike. Just go slowly and look, enjoy the ride and the scenery. It's like every ride is an adventure in itself. Do a quick turn right. And then it's the easiest way to leave this area. Do a quick turn and head back to the light. I wonder what kind of fuel people are using on their bikes. For me, I use premium. Main reason being that it doesn't contain ethanol, so I am not too worried about the plastics in the fuel system, the hoses and all whatnot, but I'm more worried about long-term stability of the fuel. So I don't need anything that could cause any complication. Besides, the tank doesn't hold too much, so usually you're not spending too much money to buy fuel. That's why I decide to go with premium. Here I'm back on Broadway and I'm heading north. Oops, make a quick turn to the left. Yeah, so I'm curious what you guys use for fuel. If you have any particular preference and you want to share with us why you choose the particular brand or grade of fuel, we'll be more than happy to learn from your experience. And here you have used vehicles also. Beautiful Ford Mustang, California. Here we're getting some gas. The tank holds 15 liters of gasoline. There. And this is a nice time to also stop for a cup of coffee. The engine on the Royal Enfield Himalayan is quite forgiving. The compression ratio is really low. It's just 9.5:1. So the engine is not really stressed at all. They call it the LS410, which is the long stroke, and 410 cc's. It's actually 411 cc's. So. Here I'm just heading to the C store that's inside the gas station to grab a quick cup of coffee and also warm up because it was still very early in the morning and I didn't dress too warm on that day. This is a little bit later. and I'm about to start heading out. Few pictures. And in this shot, we're just looking at some more vehicles, something to kill the time while I was in town. I wasn't just gonna ride and park the motorcycle somewhere, so I wanted something I could do while riding the bike. So I thought about I should go window shopping for cars. And the little sedans here, they sell for really cheap compared to what I've seen elsewhere, because the demand for little vehicles is for sedans is not very high. It's SUVs, trucks all day long. And that's a gorgeous Mustang. At the time I was doing this video, they had a GT350 and they wanted, I think, $48,000 for it. It was a nice one, low miles, stick shift. Chrysler 300s to your left. More vehicles. And time to get back on the road. It's looking more and more better now. The sun is no longer as harsh as before. It's a bit higher in the horizon. And there's KFC to the left. Again, I'm no expert, so you can still tell my operation of the bike is not so smooth. But I had to come to the city and see how the bike handled in commuter traffic, and I should say it did really good. Time to move. I love cornering with this bike. Corner's pretty good. And once more we are on Broadway, which is the main street in town. It runs north south or south north, whichever way you prefer to say it. On the left you still have quite a bit of shopping, furniture and other stuff, restaurants, and the ever-present gas station. On the right they had a Chinese restaurant, and because of COVID the restaurant went out of business. And there's another Chinese restaurant to your right about here. So as you can see, the Himalayan can definitely keep up with city traffic with no problem. There's a few hills around town, and starting out on those hills it still had no problem accelerating and staying with traffic. Here we are going downhill. And we're back to green and moving once more. The one thing you will notice when you come to this part of the country is people are so polite and nice. I saw in California, just within the span of about 3 hours, about 5 road rage incidents. It's just like everybody, or maybe I went there at the bad time of the year, but everybody seemed quite high strung. We're hooting at each other, threatening each other for driving too slow. But here everybody is kind of more laid back, relaxed. If the guy is too slow, most people here would say, well, he must have a good reason for being slow, and they will just fall back in line and slow down also. So the hospital is to the right. And somewhere to the left, all the way back, is gonna be the train station. The train actually stops in this town. So This is a newly constructed bridge. It's only a couple of months old. And in 2011, there was a major flood in town. The church you see on the right was terribly flooded. I think the flooding went like halfway up the building. So everything you see on the left, that white building structure, all of that was totally underwater. Including the building you see on the right. So it was a really terrible flood, and they've taken some measures to ensure that doesn't happen in the future. It was flood waters coming from Canada when they had a dam that was too full, and they opened up the floodgates, and there was a whole bunch of water that suddenly came into town and overwhelmed the waterways here in town, and half the town was flooded. Here we're going uphill. And this area of town is called North Hill. It's to the north of town and it's on a hill, so quite an appropriate name. You can see the Himalayan is climbing the hill, no issues, keeping up with the speed limit. And yeah, that comes to the end of our trip to Minot, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's kind of longish, but that was just also to showcase the beautiful Minot, and for those who haven't been in town for a while, they can see what all has changed. Thank you so much for watching if you watched to this end, and hopefully see you on the next video, which will definitely be much more shorter. Bye.